Once I saw how easily she could lie, how naturally it rolled off her tongue. It was like a door in my head cracked open, one I'd kept locked for too long. And through that crack, everything started to flood back. All the odd moments I had brushed off. All the little inconsistencies I'd explained away. Things that once felt like nothing now lined up in ways that made my stomach twist. Like the retreats without phones. Rachel had started going on these weekend escapes about a year ago. She called them healing retreats, digital detoxes, sometimes even soul sabbaticals, whatever that meant. At first, I respected it. I figured everyone needed a reset now and then. She was always into mindfulness, yoga, journaling. So when she said she was going off-grid for 3 days to realign herself, I didn't argue. But now, I remembered how she always left on Friday afternoons, even if she had to cancel a meeting or rearrange her schedule. And when she came back Sunday night, she never looked tired or sunburned or windblown like someone who'd been hiking or meditating in the woods. She looked radiant, recharged. Her hair curled just right, skin glowing, lips slightly pink like she'd been kissed. And there was always something new. A necklace I'd never seen before. A scarf from some boutique that didn't exist online. One time, she brought back a book that she said was passed around the group. But the inside cover had handwriting that read, "To our, keep this close to your chest. E. E." The name Ethan wouldn't mean anything to me until later. But once it did, that scribbled initial hit like S** punch. Then there was Claire. The first time Rachel mentioned her, it was offhand. She said Claire was a former coworker who'd moved to Michigan but still came into the city for these sisterhood nights. Over time, Claire became her main excuse, her +1 for every late event or last-minute plan. They'd be grabbing a drink, heading to a sound bath, or staying overnight at Claire's hotel so they could get brunch early. Except Claire didn't exist. Not online, not in any photos. I searched. I looked through Rachel's Instagram, her tagged posts, even old photos from work parties. No Claire. When I asked if she had any social media, Rachel shrugged and said, "She's off the grid. Like really private. It's kind of refreshing." I believed that too. God help me. I wanted to believe every version of her that she handed me. The late-night yoga classes came next. That started about 6 months ago. 3 nights a week, she'd throw on her leggings, tie up her hair, and head out with her mat and a thermos of lemon water. Always around 7:15. Always in a rush. She'd kiss me on the cheek and vanish. She never let me drop her off. She'd say parking was awful, or the studio was too full, or you don't want to sit through all the chanting, babe. And she always came back buzzing, like she was high on something more than vinyas. Her cheeks would be flushed, her eyes a little too wide, her mood somewhere between euphoric and untouchable. It always coincided with traffic. Always the same excuses. A pileup on Lake Shore, a train delay, someone got sick mid-session and they had to wait for EMTs. I wanted to believe her, and I did until I remembered something else. The door camera. Ours had been acting up for a while. I'd been meaning to fix it, but every time I got close, Rachel said she'd take care of it, or that it was already sorted. Then I started noticing something strange. On nights she came home late, especially after those yoga classes. The footage was missing. Not like it glitched, more like it was disabled. There were clean time gaps in the recordings, always starting 20 minutes before her return and ending 20 minutes after. That couldn't be an accident. That was intention. And once I saw the pattern, I couldn't unsee it. She'd come home, kiss me softly, sometimes even bring me a protein bar from the studio, then slip into the bathroom for a long shower. When she came out, she was always lighter, talkative, physically relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in years, not even after actual yoga retreats. I used to think maybe she's just getting better. Maybe all this inner work is finally paying off. But that wasn't it. It wasn't healing. It was hiding. Even her hostility toward my brother, Derek, started to make sense. They used to get along fine. But after one Thanksgiving, she suddenly claimed he gave her weird vibes and started picking fights every time he came up. She called him judgmental, old-fashioned, controlling, all things Derek definitely wasn't. I chalked it up to clashing personalities, But now, I think she saw something in him that scared her. Derek watched people. He listened between the lines. He noticed things. And I think she knew he'd notice her, the real her. All of it. Claire, the retreats, the camera, the yoga, the gaslighting, started stacking into a picture I hadn't wanted to see. Not just one thing, but a series of carefully managed deceptions, each one designed to hold the house of cards together for just a little longer. There's this moment when your brain finally stops trying to protect your heart. It stops buffering the pain and just shows you the raw truth. That moment hit me like cold air in the lungs. Sudden. Piercing. I couldn't go back after that. I remember sitting in my car one night, parked outside a grocery store, just staring at my hands on the steering wheel. She was at sound therapy with Claire. I was supposed to pick up dinner. But all I could think about was that damn receipt. That dinner for two. That wristband. That lie. And it wasn't just the lie. It was how good she was at it. That's what broke me. When someone lies badly, you catch it, you confront it, you move forward or apart. But when someone lies so well that you question your own sanity, that's something else. That's not just betrayal. That's a form of control. And Rachel was good. Too good. She trained me, in a way, to doubt my instincts, to smile when something felt off, to back down when she deflected. I'd learned to drop things, to avoid drama, to trust her word even when her actions didn't line up. But now the illusion was gone. And what I saw beneath it terrified me. She didn't just cheat. She built a second life, thread by thread, story by story. Carefully enough that it didn't draw attention, but confidently enough that she never expected to get caught. That's when I knew this wasn't going to unravel on its own. I had to pull the thread. I had to know, no matter how much it hurt. I started small. I made a backup of the door cam footage to my external drive. I went through my photo library, looking for timestamps from her retreat weekends, and comparing them with her Instagram stories. Some were posted at weird hours. Others were reshared from friends with private accounts I couldn't trace. I found one post from 4 months ago, her feet on a balcony, captioned reset. Just me and my thoughts. I reverse image searched the view. It wasn't a retreat center. It was a luxury loft building in Oak Park. I didn't know it yet, but that was where I'd find her. I wasn't ready to act. Not quite. But I was done looking away. The next step was coming. I could feel it, and I was done being lied to with a smile. I don't know what finally pushed me to act. Maybe it was the image of that Oak Park balcony. The familiar curve of its railing burned into my brain. Maybe it was the quiet part of me that still hoped I was wrong. That all of this was just some twisted coincidence I'd stretched into a narrative. Or maybe I just couldn't carry the weight of not knowing anymore. Whatever the reason, I went out to buy a GPS tracker the next day. I remember standing in the electronics aisle, feeling sick to my stomach. Felt wrong, like crossing some invisible line. Like the moment I opened that box, there was no going back. But here's the thing nobody tells you. When someone's been lying to your face for months, maybe years, you stop caring about the moral high ground. You stop worrying about rules and start worrying about truth. I bought it. I hid it in the lining of her carry-on, the one she always took on her retreats. The tracker would ping her location every 15 minutes once it was in motion. I tested it twice before she left just to make sure. 2 days later, she kissed me goodbye at 4:32 p.m. Wearing that light blue hoodie she always traveled in. Said she'd be off-grid again. No signal at this place, just forest and energy work. I smiled, told her to enjoy herself. Then I waited. The first ping came in at 5:07 p.m. She was headed west on I-290. I watched the little dot crawl toward Oak Park. I told myself it could still be innocent. Maybe it was just a stop. Maybe Claire had a place there. Maybe. At 6:13 p.m. the dot stopped. Not in a park or a retreat center. In front of a loft building on a quiet residential street. Same building from the Instagram story I'd reverse searched. She stayed parked for almost 10 minutes. Then the dot moved again, into the alley, toward the garage entrance. And then it didn't move at all. I waited in my car until well past 7:30. Then I drove out. The neighborhood was quiet, mostly families and working professionals. Well-maintained yards. Lampposts with those stupid little decorative flags. Normal. Innocent. I parked a block away, far enough not to be noticed, close enough to keep line of sight on the building. I sat there for nearly an hour, heart thudding so hard I felt it in my teeth. I kept telling myself to leave, to forget this whole thing. But I couldn't, not when I was this close. And then, just after 9 p.m. I saw her. She stepped out of the side entrance, laughing. Really laughing, head thrown back like she didn't have a care in the world. Her hand was resting casually on the arm of a man walking beside her. Tall, lean, black jacket, sleeves rolled up. They looked comfortable, like this was routine, like this wasn't new. He held the door for her. She touched his back as she passed. Casual, affectionate, practiced. Then the door closed behind them. I didn't breathe for a full minute. I fumbled for my phone, snapping a photo through the windshield. The resolution was garbage in the low light, but it didn't matter. I knew what I saw. It wasn't a business meeting. It wasn't a friend. This was int** Macy. This was familiarity. This was her second life. I waited until the tracker pinged again. Still in the building. I didn't follow them in. I didn't confront her. I just sat in my car, letting the weight of it all settle on my chest like wet concrete. Then I drove home. That night I couldn't sleep. I didn't even try. I lay on the couch with every light off, staring at the ceiling, wondering how many other nights had gone like this. How many other weekends she'd spent wrapped in someone else's arms while I was here, making coffee, feeding her cat, folding her damn laundry. By morning, I knew I couldn't go on living in the gray area. I needed hard evidence, something I couldn't rationalize away. Something that wouldn't vanish under another wave of deflection and gaslighting. So I searched her nightstand. I never thought of Rachel as careless. But in hindsight, maybe that's what happens when someone gets too confident. They start thinking they're invisible. Tucked in the back of the second drawer, underneath a hairdryer and a half-empty bottle of melatonin, was a prepaid phone. Black, no case, screen dusty like it hadn't been touched in a few days. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped it turning it on. There was no password. The message app was filled with only one thread. Ethan. Dozens of messages. Then hundreds. Photos. Videos. Plans. Codes. I read everything. Every last word. The oldest messages were almost a year old. Lighthearted at first. Inside jokes. Music links. Late night thinking about you texts. Then they turned more personal. Then suggestive. Then graphic. There were voice notes too. I couldn't bring myself to play them all. But I heard just enough to know this was not a passing fling. This was a full-blown emotional affair. Int** mate. Strategic. Familiar. One video stood out. Not because of what was in it, I couldn't bring myself to watch more than a few seconds, but because of the date stamp. It was from the same night she told me she was in Milwaukee for a trauma integration seminar. That night, she came home glowing. I remember her throwing her arms around me and saying, "I feel like I just released something massive." Yeah. No kidding. I took *TS of everything. Then I backed it all up, Google Drive, external hard drive, even printed copies. I knew what I had now wasn't just suspicion. It was documentation. And once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. You can't unknow it. I thought about confronting her that night, sitting across from her at dinner and sliding the phone across the table, watching her face crack. But I didn't. Not yet. Because something told me this wasn't just a case of cheating. This was bigger. Rachel wasn't just hiding a man. She was hiding a lifestyle, a structure, a network of lies so carefully laid out that even I, the guy sleeping next to her, couldn't see through it until now. I started digging deeper into Ethan. I searched his name, his number, even cross-referenced photos she'd sent with LinkedIn profiles. I found him. Ethan Rhodes. Freelance brand strategist. Runs workshops. Lives in Bucktown. Public Instagram. He posted a selfie 2 weeks ago from the same Oak Park loft. Same rug. Same cactus plant I'd seen in one of Rachel's mirror selfies months ago. I just hadn't connected the dots. One post caption read, "Nova is magic. Every time." Nova. That name would come back later, louder, darker, and with far more weight than I expected. But right then, it was just another thread to pull. And I wasn't done pulling. I didn't confront Rachel after I found the phone. Not right away. Something in me had shifted. I was past the anger stage. Past denial, too. What I needed now was clarity. The full picture. Because as painful as it was to see her messages with Ethan, it still felt like I was only scratching the surface. She wasn't just cheating. She was operating. Running something. There was a rhythm to the messages, weekly meetups, coded phrases, recurring references to rules, guests, lighting cues, even a note that said, "Nova will handle the screening." Nova. That name had already caught my attention in Ethan's post. Now it was everywhere, in chats, in calendar invites, in event rosters stored on the hidden notes app of the burner phone. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't just dealing with a hidden relationship, but a double life. It was Devin, again, who unintentionally handed me the next piece of the puzzle. A week after I found the phone, we bumped into each other at a client pitch downtown. Small talk turned to the hotel event again. This time, I didn't deflect. "Hey, just curious," I asked, keeping my tone light. "You mentioned Rachel surprised people that night. What did you mean by that?" He blinked. "You really didn't know?" "Know what?" He leaned in, voice lower. "She was running the guest list. Rachel, well, Nova technically was organizing the whole damn thing. I thought you two had some kind of open thing. Or that you were in on it." My mouth went dry. "Nova," I repeated, trying to sound casual. "That's what people call her?" Devin shrugged. "It's what she calls herself in those circles. You know, discretion and all that. Hell, most people don't even know her real name. I only found out because I recognized her face." "You're telling me she never mentioned it?" I gave a weak laugh. "Guess I'm out of the loop." But inside, I was unraveling. He went on like it was nothing. Told me Nova was kind of a fixture in certain circles. Apparently, she was the one who managed invites, scheduled locations, enforced rules like no phones, no real names, strict arrival times. She coordinated experiences. Devin said, ones that people paid to attend, ones that were curated. That word hit me sideways. Curated. Like this wasn't just cheating. It was her craft. After that conversation, I spent 3 days pulling every thread I could find. I checked event sites, encrypted calendar apps, private listings. And eventually I found it. Private site called Room 3. Password protected, vaguely branded. You couldn't search it. Someone had to send you the link. The tagline at the bottom read, "Consent, Chemistry, Curation." Below that, hosted by Nova. There were no photos, no locations, just dates, rules, and a vetted RSVP form. But in the site's back-end code, which I accessed thanks to a friend who owed me a favor, I found cache logs, guest tags, timestamps, encrypted usernames. And one email address stood out, novabalance@protonmail.com. I cross-checked it with Rachel's password manager. She had it saved under client communications. At this point, I knew that Claire was a ghost. I knew that Ethan wasn't just a lover, he was a collaborator. I knew that Rachel didn't just lie about where she was going. She orchestrated the places themselves. But still, I had to see it. I had to physically see the world she had built behind my back. That weekend, I drove out to the suburban address listed in one of the event confirmation screens *TS I'd saved from the burner phone. It was buried in an archive folder labeled Nova Logistics. It was a quiet neighborhood. Too quiet for what I was expecting. A long driveway led to a 2-story house that looked like any other family home. Brick exterior, trimmed lawn, white shutters. But something was off. The driveway had 3 unfamiliar cars, none of which belonged to Rachel, but one had the same decal I'd seen in a photo from Ethan's Instagram, a minimalist eye symbol on the back window. I parked 2 blocks away, walked under the cover of dusk, and positioned myself near the fence line. I wasn't planning to break in or even get close. I just needed to see. The lights inside were warm and low, most of them covered with those amber Edison bulbs you find in hipster cocktail lounges. I saw shadows moving slow, deliberate, in rhythm. A laugh rang out. Then another. It wasn't raucous, but it was int asterisk mate. Controlled. I stepped closer. Through the slats of the fence, I caught glimpses. Candles. Floor cushions. Red fabrics draped along the walls. Wine glasses. People sitting in pairs and small clusters, relaxed, lounging, leaning in. And then I saw her. Rachel No Nova walking slowly through the space, wearing a silk robe, barefoot, hair pinned up, holding what looked like a clipboard and giving instructions to someone sitting on a couch. She touched their shoulder lightly, smiling, confident, like she owned the room, like she'd done this 100 times before. My heart didn't just break. It calcified. This wasn't a woman who'd made a mistake. This was a woman who had built a role for herself that didn't include me, who had stepped so far outside of our marriage that she'd constructed a new name, a new persona, and a new hierarchy with her at the top. She wasn't escaping something. She was leading something, and I'd been the background music in her life for God knows how long. I stayed for maybe 10 minutes, just long enough to be sure. Long enough to see her pour wine for someone. Long enough to watch her switch off a light to set the mood. Long enough to realize the receipts, the burner phone, the wristband, none of it was accidental. It was all infrastructure. Back home, I barely spoke. I didn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling, going over it all again. How she shifted from the girl who used to cry when I was late to dinner into someone who could look me in the eye and lie with the ease of someone pouring a glass of water. And now, finally, I knew what healing had meant to her. It wasn't therapy. It wasn't retreat. It was stepping out of one life and into another. She hadn't fallen into an affair. She'd grown into it, cultivated it. She didn't belong to me anymore. She belonged to that. The house. The meetings. The laughter I'd heard through the walls. The look in her eyes that I hadn't seen in years. Not around me, anyway. I gathered all my notes, screensh asterisk ts, calendar logs and photos. Labeled every folder. Numbered each file. I wanted the timeline clear. I wanted the facts airtight. No emotion. Just proof. Because the next step wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about catching her. It was about documenting the truth, so when she finally tried to spin her version of it, she'd run headfirst into mine. Once I accepted that Rachel wasn't just having an affair, but building an entire identity behind my back, I thought I had reached the bottom of it. I hadn't. Everything until now had been the surface, the cover story, the character, the performance. But the real engine, the structure beneath it all, that's what came next. And it wasn't just betrayal. It was design. It started with a humidifier, a bulky one, silver and glass. It sat in the corner of her home office, always humming softly, always filled with lavender oil that somehow never seemed to run out. I'd never paid it much attention. It was just one of the many aesthetic pieces she curated to make her space feel aligned. Her word, not mine. But when I was packing up a few things for her, an excuse I gave myself to snoop, I moved it, and something rattled inside. I unplugged it, tipped it upside down. The bottom panel had been unscrewed once. The markings around the screws told me that much. Inside, wedged between the wiring and the water basin, was a small black flash drive. No label, no casing, just raw plastic and metal held in place with medical tape. That's when I knew. Rachel had built something I wasn't supposed to find. I plugged the drive into my laptop and sat on the floor, hands already sweating before I clicked the first folder. The file tree was organized, painfully so. Everything was nested, labeled, color-coded. She hadn't hidden it. She trusted no one would look. The root folder was titled Nova System, Private. Inside that, 6 subfolders. Guests, Finance, Scripts, Records, Reflections, Tools. I opened Reflections first. It sounded harmless. It wasn't. They were journals. Hundreds of them, each labeled by date. All in her voice. But not the Rachel I knew. This version was colder, detached, analytical. She described feelings the way a scientist might describe a specimen. Not about me, not at first, about participants. I skimmed one. Zoe broke down after night 2. Classic overexposure. I'll redesign the entry ramp next month. Limit touch points. Don't let them lean too fast. She gave up control too early, and now she's clinging. I need better language for the farewell debrief. Another note. People obey when the space is silent and the ritual feels absolute. The mask helps. So do boundaries. The illusion of structure becomes reality by night 3. Ethan's voice is key, his tone anchors them. Might record him to automate. I sat back, the air in the room thick. She wasn't just managing events. She was orchestrating experiences, manipulating people with layers of emotional engineering, behavioral psychology, and manufactured in ** Macy. It didn't stop there. Scripts contained literal dialogue trees, not speeches, flows. Segments labeled welcome, anchor, submission, reset, and release. She'd written detailed outlines of what to say, how long to pause, when to make eye contact, how to layer empathy with authority. There was a line in one script I'll never forget. They'll only give you power if you let them think they're reclaiming it. Then I opened guests. A spreadsheet. Name. Alias. Phone. Emergency contact. Personal trauma summary. Session dates. Payment tier. Notes. There were over 200 entries. And next to each a flag. Green. Yellow. Red. I clicked one of the red flags at random. The note read, K.S. Attempted to overstep after boundary cue was removed. Reinstated rules, but trust breach likely permanent. Watch for info leaks. Consider blacklisting. She didn't just track these people. She studied them, categorized their pain, monetized their vulnerability. There were guests I recognized. Acquaintances, old coworkers, even a distant cousin of mine whose name was tagged, safe but reactive. The thought of him sitting on one of those floor cushions while my wife took notes on how to subtly extract his trust made my stomach turn. Then came finance. A full ledger. Thousands of dollars moved monthly through a shell account labeled Nova Projects LLC. Payment notes were disguised, retreat supplies, space rental, voice coaching. But it was obvious what it really was: membership fees, private sessions, premium invites. And she wasn't just getting paid. She was paying others. Ethan received regular deposits, as did two other names, Ivy and Marcus. No last names, no clear roles, just consistent payouts every 30 days. Then came tools. Inside, psychological frameworks, PDFs, workshop slides, downloaded PDFs with titles like Mirror Theory in Persuasion, Synthetic Consent in Controlled Environments, and Emotional Alchemy. A facilitator's manual. She was a student of something larger, a system of influence that went deeper than I ever imagined. The last file I opened was in the records folder. It was a video, low resolution, grainy, camera set on a shelf or table angled down. The room was lit only by candles, shadows dancing along the wall. Rachel, no Nova, stood in the center wearing black. Not lingerie, not a costume, something ceremonial. Flowing sleeves, a pendant around her neck. A circle of people sat around her, all silent, waiting. She closed her eyes, raised one hand, spoke clearly. In this space, nothing you are follows you in. You are who you choose. I am your witness. And the room, in unison, responded. We are seen. That's when I stopped the video. I'd seen enough. I leaned back in the chair, the room spinning. For years, I thought Rachel was searching for balance. That all the crystals, the journals, the getaways, they were ways to find herself. But she wasn't looking. She was building. Replacing the woman I married with someone else entirely. And I had missed every step of that transformation because she had made sure I was kept just close enough to feel included, but far enough to be irrelevant. I was background noise. She said it herself in one of the journals. Mark is grounding but inert. Steady presence, no pressure. I don't need to hide, just redirect. He is static. This other space is kinetic. Alive. She hadn't cheated instead of our marriage. She had cheated around it. Built an entire architecture of purpose and identity that didn't just exclude me. It used me. Used my absence, my silence, my loyalty as cover. I wanted to scream, throw something, burn the whole office down. But I didn't. Because now I had proof. Not just of betrayal, but of structure, pattern, intent. This wasn't a phase. This wasn't a midlife spiral. This was a life. And I wasn't in it.